Are we starting now? Oh boy. I'm still on my phone, people.
I mean, it's editable.
Editable. We can edit ourselves into it.
It's Oedipusable.
Oedipusable. So, it's your mom.
Yep. The first your mom joke ever played on Society by Sigmund Freud.
Actually, no, the Oedipus... What did the Greek play? Your mom? It was your mom? Your wife? Is your mom?
Yeah, but I think Freud identified that as the first yo mom joke.
Yeah.
Yo mama.
Yo mama keeps writing Greek tragedy.
Yeah. That was, yeah, tragedy can't be a joke.
Or is it? Dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun.
maybe life is a joke.
I mean, I think the word tragedy comes from like some Greek term for like goat sacrifice. It was like a song she sang during the sacrifice of goats.
Did people like goats?
I mean, probably you were killing. You owned a lot of goats. It's like when you killed your animal.
I heard recently that a dairy cow can produce 9 gallons of milk a day.
Mm-hmm.
Which is insane, because we live with 8 people. We all buy like a gallon of milk, like
I never buy milk.
half, like 7/8 of us buy a gallon of milk, like every week and a
I
half.
I don't drink milk. Really, I probably could.
Do you not like milk?
I'm not a big white milk guy. Chocolate milk's nice, but
Chocolate milk is dank.
it's got a little too much sugar. Like, cut down on that. Haven't had any in like 6 months.
Alex is post dairy.
Not really. I need to eat more yogurt. That's probably. I keep saying I'm gonna eat more yogurt, but
For gut health.
yeah,
Don't you eat kombucha?
kombucha. Kombucha's not dairy, and you don't eat it. You drink it.
But it gives you gut health.
Yeah, I never liked kombucha.
It's not very good. I wouldn't think you'd like it.
My mom used to make it in our house. It
Everyone
stank
pretends. Everyone pretends it's good,
It stank up everything.
but nothing could be fouler.
I don't know. It's one of those. It's one of those things you kind of have to drink very, like, it's like It's like medicine. You kind of have to drink it every day, to drink it, but you don't enjoy it.
It's kind of fun to drink. It's like a healthy version of alcohol. Like you drink it for the effect, not for the taste.
Yeah, clearly. Then medicine. You drink it for the effect,
Yeah,
not the taste.
true.
Which is the tragedy of kombucha.
I'm not gonna say a Star Wars reference now.
Okay. But that's where we can get into genre. Because is tragedy the first genre? A lot of people say it was.
Really?
Yep.
Because of our inherent nature to die.
Yeah. Yep. It's also Eurocentrism, and the oldest stuff we have is probably tragedies from Greece that are like explicitly literary in form, and that they were meant to, and that they weren't like myths and legends.
Well, do you think this kind of goes back to like the state of nature with like Thomas Hobbes versus Locke,
Mm-hmm.
and like how I can't remember which one was which, but one of them thought state of nature was like,
Hobbes, the bad nature.
yeah, the state of nature was like chaos and like everyone
Violence and anarchy.
violence, and then I think Locke thought it was like peaceful and understanding. Or
Well, I mean,
maybe not
that's
understanding, but
a bit of an oversimplification of Locke. But yeah, it wasn't violence and anarchy, but like Locke was like state of nature was good, but it wasn't good enough, and that's why we formed government. It was Rousseau who was like state of nature is good. Like Rousseau's big argument was that the state of nature is better than government,
okay.
and that government was just created by people to exploit others.
Well, he's a radicalist, right?
He's a critic, a cynic.
Cynic?
Well, yeah, he's a point.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau?
Well, explicitly in the class I took, they identified him with political cynicism, which is basically a critical idea to the belief that politics can solve human problems.
Okay.
Which
Yeah, well, but wasn't the term radical like coined with like the French era that he was in?
many of the radicals were influenced by his ideas, I think.
Yeah, and
The radical Republicans during the Revolution.
yeah, and then I had a teacher who like really emphasized that radical doesn't necessarily mean like they'd use radical today, like terrorists, like radical terrorists. It's
Yeah.
more like it's a philosophy.
Yeah, philosophical view on what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Which is why most radicals end up being.
It's not a synonym for extreme. It's just like its own
Even though.
philosophical value system.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah. Hell, I'm free radicals. Gonna eat some acai berries. Really thinking about food today.
My mom might laugh at that one. What was it? So it goes back to whether we're more of like a Locke and Rousseau or a Hobbes.
Hobby.
And if we're Hobbian, if we're hobbits, then it was kind of a tragic state of nature,
Yeah.
and those were the first folk stories told.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the interesting ideas about tragedy was the fact that the Greeks themselves were supposed to. I've heard that a lot of Greeks themselves actually had a very positive outlook on life, and that tragedies were like supposed to be almost minor occurrences brought about by the hubris of the main character. Hence, that in the tragic genre, the main character has to have some sort of flaw that is easily detectable, and that brings upon their downfall.
Okay, so it's not a natural bringing tragedy. It's not of nature. It's more of like
Of man, of their
man.
own.
The flaws of man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a. In fact, some of the Greeks got like so complex. They had like a free arc tragedy in which there was like a trilogy of free plays, and I think that's sort of almost where the trilogy form comes from. Free plays and it ends in a tragedy, or free tragedies that follow hubris. And then at the end, there's a satyr play, which is like, as I read online, the first identifiable image known fan service.
Of a satyr.
Well, what a satyr play is basically all the character at the end of or in the middle of the tragic cycle of free plays. They have one play that has a lot of the characters from the tragic plays, but it's a comedy. So it's like, hey, look at that! You can see your characters, but they're all happy and no one's gonna die at the end.
Okay, so can you explain that again? Like, the characters from the tragedy are thrown into a comedy, and you see them in like a.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like a filler episode after like a season finale.
Yes.
Okay, so it kind of reminds me of
To like get the audience morale up.
to tie this back to the greatest cultural accomplishment ever of Star Wars. This is like the prequel trilogy when maybe it's Qui-Gon's hubris that led him to fight Darth Maul alone.
Yeah.
And he's killed.
Well, I mean, it was all about Anakin's hubris that he could save Padme from dying.
Yeah, I'm talking about like 3 tragedies though, and then the second one definitely has a tragedy about Anakin losing his arm.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he's hot shit.
Yeah, his hand, too much pride.
But then they have a filler. They have a satyr play at the end when they get married. He gets married to Padme.
Yeah.
And And then the third one is obvious.
Yeah, I would say that I think one idea is a satyr plays that's supposed to stand alone versus like.
Okay.
But I will say that like the idea of an actual standalone play is like super
it's more like the Christmas episode.
Yeah, and even then that doesn't really. They don't really do that anymore. But as you pointed out, they still have like little evidence and stuff.
Yeah. I'm stretching it, but
no, that was a good idea.
I was gonna tie it back.
Yeah,
to where I'm from.
I mean, I think the main difference between tragedy and comedy, which were the traditional two genres for most of human literary history in Europe, was how the play ended. In that a tragic cycle ended with the death of the protagonist and the destruction of their ideals.
Yeah.
And comedy ended with a marriage. Which is why if you read Shakespeare plays, there's like some plays, like a good example of Romeo and Juliet's actually quite comedic throughout, but at the end they die. So it's a tragedy. Versus like another play that more obscure stuff like Measure for Measure or Tempest, where there's a lot of darkness and vengeance and violence going on, but the end of the play has a marriage. So it's considered a comedy.
Would you prefer living in a system where it's very dichotomous like that, or would you prefer like the manifold that we have now of like crime fiction, romance, detective novel, sci-fi, fantasy?
I mean, I don't know. I think that it's basically a reflection on the fact that our literary tastes are much more evolved, but also that I think people have started to identify that aesthetics, broadly defined, are almost more important for genre, at least on initial classification, though, again, whether or not the form, i.e. how the narrative progresses, or the, aesthetics, where it's set, what the characters look like, how they're talking, is more important. Like,
yeah. The work defines the genre rather than like being totally contingent upon the ending or just a.
I mean, that's still important.
It's the means, not the ends.
Yeah, I mean
like,
that's
literally.
Yeah, it's like a good example of this is martial arts films. Like, what is a martial arts film? Is it a movie about people who use martial arts, or is there something more? Because I took the martial arts film class, so I'm going to plug it. And we talked about how a lot of martial arts movies' plots all revolve around the theme of revenge. And if you look at most of the martial arts films, especially kung fu movies, almost all of them, the plot involves the protagonist getting revenge on people who'd wronged them.
Mm.
Like their first act, their parents, master, family, brother, best friend, whoever's important, gets murdered, i.e. John Wick, and now they have to get even with the people who did it.
Yeah. I had someone show me recently the Quentin Tarantino was getting harassed by this news interviewer about how he put Uma Thurman as the lead role in Kill Bill, and he's like, the lady was like, do you want our children, our little girls, to be seeing this? Like, and he's like, yeah, this girl kicks ass. She's a hero. She's a or whatever. And she's
revenge plot.
Yeah,
Kill Bill.
yeah, exactly. And that's and he's saying like, revenge isn't pretty. Revenge is messy. And and Kill Bill is kind of cool how it. Kill Bill is very derivative of the old show Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even it has the same actor plays Bill.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah, it was made as an homage.
Kung Fu was like, it wasn't as much of a revenge. It was like, a Western Taoist. It was the mixture of like Taoism and Western movies. Because like the present was in the Western film, and then he'd like go back and like his mind palace of memories and retrieve the Taoist wisdom from his master.
Yeah. The one thing I read, and this was or we talked about in the kung fu movies, is like the nature of the kung fu itself, in that particularly due to traditional Asian influences of Buddhism, which stress the idea of pacifism, that you're not really supposed to be an aggressive, violent person. But how do you reconcile that with learning extremely powerful kung fu moves that could kill someone?
That's the edge of the. That's the coolest edge within that genre, you know, like that everyone has to ask themselves, like why are you learning to fight?
Yeah.
You know, why are you learning to defend yourself? It's like I think a book we just read recently. It's like war strategists. Do you think they go to school for all these years to learn war strategy and then to just sit in a room and always try to deter war?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, they want to like show how good they are, and so they're not going to be not in advocacy of war. They're going to be like, I want to show what I can do, you know?
Yeah. I mean that's the paradox that gets resolved in a revenge plot of kung fu movies, because it's not you. Your kung fu is purely in self-defense. You're not the one killing people. You've got to get justice for the people who have killed your family and may be coming after you.
Yeah, it's
which allows you to do like kung fu without being a very violent, aggressive person. You're just trying to restore because you live in a society. You have to restore social harmony that's been violated.
Yeah, it's the man with nothing to lose
Mm-hmm.
that society no longer holds any ties to.
Yep. And then explore the questions of vengeance versus justice. I mean, it's a similar situation with the Western genres. Most Western films revolve, not all, but not as much as Kung Fu, but explicitly most Western films also revolve around some sort of revenge plot.
Yeah, like I think The Outlaw Josie Wales, or maybe Pale Rider. I can't remember which one.
I mean, that one...
Clint Eastwood's like has a family, and
Yeah.
bandits come and kill him, and then they kill his family, and then he goes and gets revenge.
Yep. And that's why a lot of Kung Fu, and that's why there's all those crossovers between Western genre versus Kung Fu genre. Like, let's make Seven Samurai, Seven Magnificent Seven, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because
Do you think The Good and the Bad and the Ugly is a revenge plot?
I mean,
There's like, I feel like the good and the ugly are definitely like getting revenge on each other throughout, but I feel like it's more of a
an adventure plot.
Yeah, I guess it's an adventure plot.
I
That's
mean,
a good way to say
once
it.
again, not all Kung Fu or martial arts movies are revenge plots, and not all Westerns are, but it's interesting to look at, like, that theme of, like, what is the overarching plot within the genre.
What about, like, The Last Samurai? Do you think that's, like,
That's a good one.
I don't think that's revenge. I think that's more like,
But,
it's like
But the-
enticable. It's
but isn't he kind of, like, leading the Shogun's armies against, like, the people who are trying to destroy them?
yeah. I feel like it's a romanticism of the past a bit.
I mean, that's another thing that's also present in Kung Fu movies.
Yeah.
Or martial arts films, because, like, in fact, some of the earliest martial arts films were about romance, of, like, how great China was in the past, and again, even Western films are about how great the West was before it got all turned into just like the East.
I think it's a rebellion plot.
That's a good one too.
And I think similar is like Braveheart is kind of a rebellion plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think rebellion and revenge plots are like both
Very similar.
very enticing.
Yeah.
That's the edge of, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
do we risk the rest of our lives to like fight our oppressors?
Mm-hmm. How do you live in a society? Or do you not live in a society?
Paint your face blue and get your guts ripped out.
Scotland! No British society.
Freedom!
Freedom from what exactly? Freedom from government? Or just freedom from British people?
Doesn't matter. You just have to feel it.
Yeah. But I mean,
You don't have to. You don't need a prize. You don't need a token that says you're free. You just need to feel it, man.
feel it. But yeah, I mean, again, superhero genre movies. How Are all superhero movies the same? Do they all
No.
follow a familiar free act structure, or particularly superhero origin films that revolve around Act 1 getting powers, Act 2 figuring out your powers, making a mistake, Act 3 fighting the villain, becoming known?
So Batman's obviously the detective. Superman is like, he can see through walls, so I feel like he subverts the detective, and there's not an interesting plot of how he figures out stuff. He just immediately figures it out, you know. So he doesn't fall into the crime fiction category.
But yeah, Batman
because
definitely came out of crime fiction.
Yeah, but it's because there's no story of like the investigation with Superman. He's just like, oh, I can see that he's putting the kryptonite and the laser beam through the wall or whatever. And then he goes and fights him.
More of an action hero.
Yeah. Well, what about the new Superman, the first one? What kind of plot do you think that is?
Again, free act structure, part 1.
Yeah.
I'm Superman, I'm not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. Part 2, the Kryptonians come in from the Phantom Zone somehow. Oh boy, I gotta figure things out. Act 3, I gotta save the world from being blown up by Zods.
Okay, I guess it's a safe...
Dubstep lasers.
Yeah, so I guess it's like a defensive protection movie, protection of home.
I mean, then again, that's similar to a lot of Superman stuff. Is like he's so powerful, you can't really do anything unless someone else does something.
Yeah.
Ever seen Superman Returns? I want to watch that one again.
With Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
I watched a ripped off LimeWire version in California when I was 8.
Yeah.
So it was pretty bad, but quality wise, I don't remember the movie at all.
I remember I really liked the movie, but I want to rewatch it to see if it was good, because I remember watching it when I was like 7 or 8 at like New Year's Eve, and it was like awesome because I got pizza and it was like, oh, Superman movie. It's like,
Pizza and Superman movie.
yeah,
That's the stuff.
I know, it was great. It was like whole family together, nice time. But yeah, I just want to remember because I thought that movie was awesome. I was really mad they never made a sequel, and then they had to for like a decade or until they rebooted the franchise with, you know, the new actor. What was his name again? It's on my tongue. But yeah, they rebooted the franchise with.
It's not Armie Hammer.
No, with not Armie Hammer. I mean, he's not a bad. The guy who did the new Superman, I don't think he was a bad actor.
But Armie Hammer and the guy were in.
Man from U.N.C.L.E.
The Man from that was a pretty good movie. I like the scene.
That one was on. That one didn't get a lot of press.
There's just one scene that I really like in it where I think Armie Hammer's like getting chased in a boat.
Henry Cavill, he's the guy.
Yeah, okay. Henry Cavill's in a truck eating a sandwich, like listening to like classical ballet music or something.
Why don't you ever move this, Quinn?
I like it right there. Not a lot.
Threatening our necks the
Behead
whole
us
time.
both. It's the guillotine. Henry Cavill's in a truck eating a sandwich, listening to like ballet, and as you see Armie Hammer being chased in a boat, and like you see his boat blow up and it sinks, and then so Henry Cavill turns on the car, puts his sandwich down, drives into the water, and then like lets all the water into the car, and then like saves Armie Hammer somehow. I don't know. It's super funny. It's it's like one of those like bubbles of peace within like a chaotic action moment that's just sometimes super funny.
Yeah, that's funny. That's interesting.
That's like
though, I mean, again, spy films versus detective films, because Man from U.N.C.L.E.'s a spy film. And
so like James Bond's a spy film.
Yeah, that's the prototypical spy film.
Yeah, and then The Man from U.N.C.L.'s like it's not quite Get Smart.
Yeah.
But it's not quite James Bond. It's somewhere in the middle. You know?
I don't know. The one thing I was thinking a lot about was spy films versus detective films and their ideas of sentimental and domestic. Because, I mean, you see, like, all the detective films or books we're reading are all about family, and at the end of the day, it's like your family past, it comes back to haunt you. versus or your family sucks or is dysfunctional.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of family stuff in spy movies. It's more
like James Bond shagging half the women, but you never see him again. Like in a detective film, he shagged a woman like 20 years ago, and now there's like
she comes back.
comes back with like this bastard son who's like
the murderer.
Yeah. Versus like James Bond's like, well, I'm off to Malaysia now. Oh, I'm off to like Brazil. I mean, who knows? I could be having tons of kids, but I'm out.
No, he obviously had a vasectomy. Or he's just like has ultimate willpower over his progenitus.
I don't know that. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting how they've actually tried to a little bit critique that in the new James Bond films by having some people reappear from the last few ones. Like,
yeah, well, Casino Royale,
he's still mad about how Ava Green's dead.
Yeah, Casino Royale was great because of that like last arc in that. I think that like really just made it kind of a golden movie in my opinion.
Yes, it's like you think he won, and he's like living off of the girl. Like, oh, they're getting sentimental. They're gonna settle down, live in Venice. It's gonna be great. Oh wait, it's not. James Bond can never settle.
Then the destruction of sentimentality is so sweet, so bittersweet.
Yep, he can never settle. Even though it implied at the end of Spectre he might settle down, though again we don't really know. This movie might have... I don't know, I kind of wish James Bond had to settle down. I mean, I know he wouldn't be James Bond, but it's like...
They have to keep you wishing that, man.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, it's the new James Bond 25 is going to come out next year, and they're bringing back the same leading actress from Spectre.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the same leading actress from...
No, Nia Sedal.
Yeah.
Well, I think she was nice. She's really pretty. I don't...
Yeah, but the OG girl...
I know, but she's dead. The OG girl's
Vesper.
dead. Vesper is dead. But, I mean, I guess I'm just really afraid that within, like, the first 20 minutes of the movie, she's going to die, so James Bond gets something to do.
Maybe it'll be like a Bonnie and Clyde romance.
That would be cool, but it's like, oh, boy, she's going to die in the first 25 minutes. And James Bond's going to be hooking up with someone else, and then...
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's sort of an escape from the fact that if there was a James Bond film, like, she lives the entire film, but James Bond has sex with someone else, then he has to deal with the fallout from her dumping him. But that's a little bit too real to get put in a James Bond movie.
Yeah, I think the spy films are expressly not real, like crime fiction. But what do you think the difference is between a spy film and like Batman? Batman's a detective, but he's not he's just as surreal as James Bond. Well, maybe a little more surreal than James Bond.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he's a superhero, kinda, pretty much.
I guess you get the sense of like maybe a little bit of a chaotic neutral from James Bond.
The one thing about spy films that I think was that a lot of them are about the spectacle and the glamour and the exotic. Like every James Bond film has to have this exotic chase scene in a foreign country. Like James Bond has to go to at least 4 different countries in the story. He's got to go to like, the tropics. Ooh, look, he's at a snow base. Oh, look at that. He's at, He's like, you gotta be in like India, China, Turkey, Persia, South Africa, Rio. He's gotta be somewhere exotic and spicy. Like, they're almost travelogues at a point, and he's gotta be like rich at a rich casino with a bunch of rich girls.
Also, someone has to double cross someone.
Yep.
And if they're good writers, quadruple cross.
But I don't know. It's kind of funny to think about how like. I guess that almost spy novels and detective novels reference like the two sides of like almost capitalist business because like they're both directed to white men and like spy novels are just more exciting versions of business trips. Wow, detective novels are just like depressing versions of of internal accounting. It seems like trying to reckon with, I gotta manage society.
Yeah.
Or like...
My grandpa was a traveling salesman for like... either like street cleaners or like retreading tires or something like that.
Yeah.
And my dad said that he thought my my grandpa was a spy growing up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're going to cool locations. You're doing cool stuff. You're having maybe meaningless sex on the road.
Perhaps.
I don't know. It's just interesting. Spy novel. The exotic, the glamorous, the luxurious, the double cross.
The indulgent yet like nihilistic attitude of James Bond.
Yep.
He's like he's got it all, but does he want it? He still is like lawful too, but he's like lawful and chaotic a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum. He's in there.
He's like the waffle. He's like sort of chaotic good.
Yeah, I guess.
He's just doing whatever he wants.
It's like a dutiful, chaotic good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're gonna add another dimension to that.
Yeah, it's well, yeah. So, I mean, could James Bond become a detective in a detective novel? Like, what would be required?
I think if he had settled down with Vesper, then had kids and then like got fat,
he would have been a detective.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting detective. James Bondoni, detective in Venice.
James Bondo.
Ex-spy, ex-British spy, now expat in Venice. Private eye.
Tries to like hit on girls, gets shut down. Has to like pretend to be like the waiter at the party.
One too many martinis.
Yeah. Like gets too drunk. Can't hold his liquor.
Shaken, not stirred.
Shaken, not
Yeah, that'd be a fun one. Or like turn a detective novel into a spy novel.
Would like.
Yeah, that's a little harder to do.
Like within the story, progress them from a normal person to a spy.
Yeah.
That happens with like Kingsman.
Oh yeah,
but he's not a detective at all.
Yeah, that's a spy novel or a spy film.
That's just a total spy film. But like he'd have to go from being like typical boring detective that just kind of is a normal guy that solves stuff to being he'd have to like start going to Move Fitness.
Well, yeah. I was like, he'd have to go to like at least 2 or 3 different countries. He'd probably have to hook up with some rich people, rich bad girls. Has to go to like a casino. Gonna mingle with the high.
I think it would be jarring. It wouldn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be difficult to pull off. On the flip side, seeing James Bond as a retired PI in Venice seems more believable. But then again, maybe that's also because spy films praise youth and energy, and detective novels are about cynical and embittered and bittered.
And there's like a societal. There's a little bit of in the new James Bonds. There's been the bad guys always have some. Are the bad guys' ideas about society more ridiculous in spy films than in detective novels?
That's would be a good compare and contrast, because probably yes, even though they're both completely over the top.
Yeah, because in like Austin Powers, like 1 million, they kind of just want money sometimes. That's like the wimpiest bad guy in a spy film. The real bad guy has like some.
I don't know. It's like
anger.
It's like here's The Spy Who Loved Me. It's a classical 1970s James Bond film. This one's got like the underwater boat car. He's like in a secret submarine base of this bad guy who's like kidnapping American and Soviet nuclear submarines and pretending the other side did it so he can spark a nuclear war. And like his big plan was to restart civilization under the water because he thinks civilization has grown too decadent.
Nice.
Which is one of those things that's like, what? Or Moonraker would have bad guy, literally, his plot is kill everybody, repopulate the world with me and supermodels.
Really?
Yeah, that's like the best. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like he builds a space laser. He's like, I'm going to destroy the world, and then it's only going to be me and all these supermodels that are going to restart the human race, and everybody's going to look beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, I don't remember that.
It's like that's like the ultimate extension of egoism.
I know. Yeah, the last time I watched the James Bond marathon was on Spike when I was really young.
Yeah, it was like the most epic extension of egoism. It's like, oh, me, I'm so good, nobody else deserves to live.
Yeah, there's a little bit of. I think sometimes it's in the recent Bonds. There's been a little bit of like revenge plots by the bad guys, but there's also the egoism. In detective novels, I feel like it's strictly like personal revenge against like a detective or
against someone who wronged them,
or like it's this small scale. Well, I don't know if it's
Well, I mean,
it's kind of hard to lay too many blankets on it.
I mean, the fun thing about the detective novels is they're always about the big question: why would someone like the number one value in society is don't kill people?
Yeah.
And then it's like, what motivates someone to break the values?
Yeah.
And it usually has to do with some
Maybe
sort
a little more grotesque in detective novels and like a little more of a spectacle in James Bond, because James Bond, like, they painted the girl gold when they killed her.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, you know.
I mean, once again, like, that it's sort of changed a bit with serial killers, but it seems like in a detective novel, it's very personal. Like, it's not supposed to be the killing isn't explicitly an indictment in society at large. While in spy novels, the bad guys are explicitly attempting to control. It's not just like a personal affair necessarily. They're trying to either literally destroy the world or like control society for their own aims. Like, it's not personal. It's not a family. It's literally everybody in the country.
I mean, Skyfall's pretty. Are you talking about detective or spy?
Spy. At least that's the traditional.
Yeah. The new ones subvert that, and I think that's maybe why they're good.
Yeah, or at least why they're interesting now versus the traditional ones.
Yeah, I bet you that the writers of that might be trying to incorporate more like detective stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because the detective fiction is so like
popular now.
I think so. Like, spy novels came out
in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and I think that was like, it's almost like how Star Trek predicted a lot of technology. I think spy novels were trying to like pretend like there's all these tools for investigation that are really helpful.
And reference the fact that plane travel and, Cold War, the world's a small place, so you can go anywhere. Look at that.
Yeah, and I think detective novels now, or detective
fiction,
TV shows, whatever, are like using the actual technology of today.
Sort of pull back on societies.
So it's like a realistic spy movie almost,
Almost, yeah.
They're not like spies. They're not undercover, really. Usually, it's like it's a lawful investigation. Yeah. It's not this secret.
We could also go back to the one interesting thing I was thinking about in the fantasy novel versus politics and society was that the classical fantasy novel, and then whether or not almost all fantasy novels are a response or fanfic to Tolkien, we don't have to talk about that. But the classic Tolkien-esque fantasy novel is always like characters are bumbling around doing the protagonist is bumbling around doing nothing in their happy home life, and then next thing you know, there's some quest, and then they have to get allies from like multiple different groups, and they have to go around the world, and then they have to unite everybody against some sort of dark, malevolent force that will consume the world. Which is then again how much, again, a lot of people have talked about Lord of the Rings as a metaphor for the Second World War. Whether or not Tolkien's approved of that or not, I don't
think he did, but
he didn't like it.
There's lots of like evidence for it.
I mean, it's a general sense that like the idea of the novel and fantasy films is all a recreation of the idea of this unification of society against fascism. It's like we got to get everybody involved. We got to get different social classes involved. We got to get the workers. We got to get the miners. We got to get the elites.
I think fascism's just like,
You know, it's like the humans. They're like the proletariat. The dwarves, they're like miners, bankers, and we got to get the elves, which are like the traditional nobility. We like how England's rallying together to try and.
yeah, true. I think that if it's not intentional that it's a metaphor for World War II, I think it's just a testament to how like naturally evil fascism can appear in people's minds. Like they can,
I think it's,
their sense of evil might be fascism without like intentionally being, oh, this is a
yeah.
metaphor for fascism.
I agree. It's not fascism, but it's at the core of it. It's about the attempt to make society whole and to help resist a common enemy.
Yeah.
And that's, you can see that in we don't have to talk about Game of Thrones, but how much Game of Thrones attempts to subvert that trope versus attempting to follow along. Like how much of it Game of Thrones tries to subvert the White Walkers are coming, we gotta band together, versus whether it's really possible for everybody to band together to fight the White Walkers. Like, is it really possible for society to come together?
It's subverting the common enemy panacea that will unite the world.
Yeah, and that's one thing I love fantasy novels. Lord of the Rings attempts, because it did kind of happen that particularly during World War II, all of the British political parties were in one common government, and there's a belief that England has to defeat the Nazis, even in France, before the war. All of the government, pretty much all political parties, from like the communists to the Catholic parties, got in one government to resist the fascist parties, and they're like a united front. So it's like, I guess it's like all fantasy novels are about the formation of a united front, not the united front, but
yeah,
about stuff like that.
I can't think of one that doesn't really. I only know of like 3, but
yeah. And then the deconstructed that is whether today it's possible for society in America to come together around a common issue. Is it? Can we?
I don't know. Maybe if we like personify global warming, we just say like some guy's doing it, then we'll do it.
They're not the frost White Walkers, they're actually the hot walkers. It's all gonna get really hot. They're just gonna walk around on the glaciers and then
The hot walkers. They got hot feet.
yeah. And I mean White Walkers as a metaphor for climate and how mankind has to unite against climate and how the struggle against the elements forges communities and natural disasters. Which is why in addition to being explicitly fascist, most of the dark one in most fantasy novels is explicitly a force of nature.
Less so in like Harry Potter.
Less so in Harry Potter. That one's definitely more political, but Lord of the Rings and even especially Game of Thrones, it's explicitly connected, and White Walkers are explicitly connected with nature.
Yeah,
Winter. They're making everything freeze, and you can't live if everything's frozen. So whether or not they'll actually kill you, they're just zombies who will kill you.
There's no political route out of it. You kind of have to kill them.
Yeah, but the political route is there's so many of them, so many White Walkers, you have to get everybody together.
Yeah, but the reason is like there's no communing really with the White Walkers.
No, yeah, you can't talk to them. They're literally, it's like you can't stop an earthquake through like dialogue.
Yeah,
you can't.
That's what makes them like no one ever talks to Sauron.
Yeah,
really. I mean, I guess
you can't don't negotiate with Sauron.
We don't negotiate with terrorists.
We don't negotiate with orcs.
But Aragorn sends him a text. He Skypes with him through the Palantir.
Well,
like, I'm coming for you, mister, and I got the sword that chopped your finger off.
It's been reforged.
The blade of the west. The flame of the west.
Yeah, I got him. We're doing it for real this time, not the first time. And that's another, again, classical fantasy trope. That's derived from a lot of both real life experience and also biblical genre. There's in that the idea that things were better in the past and then they fell apart and we have to get back to that.
Is the end of Lord of the Rings a tragedy or a comedy?
I mean, it should be a comedy because Sam gets married.
But Frodo,
Aragorn
Frodo
gets
can't
married.
get over his finger and his chest wound,
Yeah,
so he sails into the west.
that's a good point. I mean, it depends on who you think the hero of Lord of the Rings really is. If it's Aragorn, he gets married. It's Frodo. He doesn't die though. He does his job. But yeah,
Frodo's kind of always like melancholy throughout the
It's
whole
kind
thing.
of stuck and it's like, well, I've
Frodo's-
seen everything. Time to ascend.
Yeah, he's got too much Tookish blood. He's got to. He can't. He's. I think Tookish blood is like
Too much melancholy.
not necessarily. I think it's like. Well, it's in the novel. It's like sense of adventure, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good
Which
one.
is a little bit of ego, which is a little bit of it's not melancholy, but like it can turn into it if you're not
Yeah.
keeping yourself happy or interested
Mhm.
with like where you actually want to be.
Yeah,
you know?
he's not a domestic character.
It represents like an opposition to norms, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he still enjoys it. Like I think like Bilbo definitely still enjoys his
It's hut.
home, yeah, and he kind of had to be pried away from it, but like
Once you're out, he likes being out a bit. He likes the adventure.
yeah, kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. And I mean, again, we can all connect this back to the monomyth. Everything's good till it's not good, and you have to go through a cycle, get it good again.
Yeah, I like
And that's
I like the
hero's
idea.
journey.
I like the idea of like a common intention within like physically being in your blood or something like that. That's kind of cool, but
Hey, that was what the plot. That was low key kind of the plot of the whole Jar City, because it was about genetic disease, so it's literally in your blood. But that's dark stuff that's in your blood. Like, that makes your daughters die when they turn 7, brain cancer.
we're talking about a detective novel called Jar City,
Yeah,
Icelandic crime fiction.
yeah, yeah. Like how you have genetic disease and then your kids get burdened with it and they die young.
Real uplifting stuff.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah, I mean the good stuff that you can pass along your bloodlines, like madness, food allergies, dyslexia,
Iron deficiencies.
colitis. You don't want to do it. Don't do it. I mean, it's a reference to the fact that we all have good things and bad things about ourselves, and that our kids are gonna both have good traits and bad traits that we give them.
Unless we edit their structure, their genetic structure.
I mean, could we edit the structure of a novel to make it perfect?
Wow. The human is a novel.
And that's where we're gonna end, I think.
With the monomythic
No, it's-
teachings of Joseph Campbell, everyone is a novel with a beginning and an end.
I mean,
Thank you for watching episode 3 of To Make a Long Story Short. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Top one. Top one.
Top one.
Top one.
Okay, now it's over.
Nice. 42 minutes.
This one was a bit long, but I think we had some good stuff.
That's good flow. It didn't stop though.
Yeah, we were